name's Laura McNamara. I'm the Executive Director of the East Providence Area Chamber. And this is the 10th annual Watchemoket Square week. Usually it's a day on a Saturday, sometime in October, but this year, because of all that's going on in the world, we decided to make it a week and do it virtually as much as possible. So we are here this evening with David Weed from the Soames Heritage Area Project. He's going to be talking about that, and also we'll be sharing the information with his YouTube channel, so you can check that out at your leisure as well. First, I'd like to get some information out as far as our sponsors and some information about Watchemoket Square Week, and then we'll get into Dave's presentation. So thank you all for joining us this evening. This event is held or is hosted by the East Providence Area Chamber, and with our generous sponsors, we're able to put this event on as well as others throughout the year. I'd like to recognize our sponsors, Bay Coast Bank, Brown Medicine, Brown Physicians, Navigant Credit Union, Washington Trust, IHOP, Aspen Aerogels, Metro West Business Services, Verizon, Woods Heating Service, and also a big thank you to the East Providence Historical Society and the City of East Providence. On the website, watchemoketsquareday.com, there's a whole list of activities for the week that you can do in your spare time this week or throughout the year, actually. The Historical Society has provided 3 separate walking tours of the area that we've done in the past, but you can do those on your own. You can either drive around or you can walk around. So thank you for joining us tonight. Dave Weed, tell us what is going on with the Poconokets and the Soames Heritage Project, and what have you been up to lately?
Thank you very much, Laura, for the opportunity to talk to folks. These days, in the era of COVID, we don't get many opportunities. So this is a good one, and I'm glad you're recording this so that people who can't be here at this time can enjoy this later on. I will be offering a more extensive explanation of what the Soames Heritage Area is by video, and I think you all should have received the link in an email. But if anybody who wants to know more about the Soames Heritage Area can simply go to Soames, SOWAMS, Heritage Area, all one word, .org. And I now have over 500 pages on that website.
Wow.
So, but you'll only see one page at a time, so don't worry about it. If you, on the search bar at the top of the page, if you type in Watchemoket or East Providence, you'll get all the pages that relate to that particular location and the city of East Providence. I have to say, Laura's been very helpful in this process, and we're making progress inch by inch. Many people have heard of the Blackstone Valley Heritage Area, which runs now from Pawtucket all the way to Worcester, and is now a national park. Not many people, unless you've been up there, realize that. And I'm going to be meeting with the director of the national park on Thursday to talk about the possibility of extending that heritage area all the way down to Bristol, because I think there's a great opportunity for people to learn not only the history of basically Blackstone is all about the Industrial Revolution that started with Slater Mill, but also to learn about the 100 years before that. We have that history here in East Providence and throughout 8 communities in East Bay, Rhode Island, and a little bit into Massachusetts, Swansea, Seekonk, and Rehoboth. And you'll learn on that website that that 8-town area was basically the name of the place where the Massasoit Osamequin, who met the Pilgrims in March of 1621. You'll remember your 3rd grade history. And he signed a treaty, the first treaty between the Europeans and any native community anywhere in North America. and that treaty provided for the mutual protection of each of the two communities. And that agreement lasted for 54 years until the outbreak of the King Philip War in 1676. So this was really a groundbreaking event, something that should be known by everybody in America, but unfortunately, most of the people in Rhode Island don't even know about it, even though it occurred under our watch. That agreement really paved the way for the colonization of New England. It meant that the English were protected from any rival tribes and could engage in trade, which was very helpful for their survival, and offered them an opportunity to learn about how you get along in New England, which I think the English really thought they were just going to find another piece of England over here, and they discovered, even though it was several latitudes south, it was colder here than it was in England, and they had to get through some tough winters and learn how to plant new crops. Their crops didn't grow well here, but corn did, and the native folks who were from the Poco tribe learned how to grow, taught the English how to grow crops successfully, and then traded with the English with furs for many of the goods that the English had, including knives and axes and guns. So it really changed both societies over that half a century there, and ensured that the English survived. But unfortunately, the people who were living here did not fare so well. And it was because of the continued encroachment. Some call the English invaders who came in here and took away substantial pieces of land that the native people had been used to using for centuries. So there's a whole story to be told. And Steve, it's somewhat wrapped up in Thanksgiving, but there's a lot more to that. So what we want to do in the Somes Heritage Area Project is to teach people what really happened here, both the good and the not so good, but to help people understand how New England began, because it began right here. We are the center point of that whole transition between native rule and colonial rule. Let me, if I could share a screen briefly here.
There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll assume everybody can see it. So you can see Providence at the top and Bristol at the bottom. But just below Providence is East Providence. These are 54 locations that we've identified that all have a connection with the 17th century. So I tell people the Somes Heritage Area is about rediscovering the 17th century right under your feet, because many people, I'd say most people, have little idea of what's already here. But let me just point out, in East Providence, there are a number of locations, and people should know that East Providence was really the site of the very first colonial settlement on this side of this Providence River. Obviously, Roger Williams managed to come through this area, but was sent across the river and established Providence in 1636. But by 1643, Reverend Thomas Newman came down from Weymouth with a whole group of people and established what is today East Providence, or Rumford, then known as Rehoboth, until we had a number of name changes. But if the Ring of the Green is not familiar to people, I would suggest they go on the Somes Heritage Area page and just type in Ring of the Green, and you'll learn all about what that was. And you'll notice here, if you can see my cursor, over here we have Bold Point, and across from there is India Point. That's the location of Watchemoket Square. Okay. Now, I don't have a whole web page on Watchemoket Square. I'm getting an echo. Is that coming through on your side?
Yeah, I just muted him.
Okay. Watchemoket Square. The name Watchemoket isn't a Native American name, a name by the Pokanoket tribe, not the Wampanoag. Everybody hears Wampanoag, but I'll briefly explain that. And Watchemoket meant the place of the great spring. So I don't know if anybody has found a spring there, but apparently at some point in the 17th century anywhere, there was a spring there. But we do know it was an important settlement area because of its access to the water, not only for fishing and clamming, but also for transportation. And then we have Takwatan, which isn't on the East Providence side, but really is the name of the place across the river at just behind India Point. You know, when you go by there on Route 195, you see a hill to the north. Well, that was the meaning of Takwatan. It was the translation is the steep ascent to be climbed. Okay.
Did you say that again, Dave?
The steep ascent to be climbed.
Okay.
Okay, that's the meaning of Takwatan. And if you were to get out of your car and try to go up the hill there, it would be a steep ascent. Quite a hill. Those are just two indications of the fact that not only East Providence, but Watchemoket in particular, was occupied by Native people. Our best guess is for a minimum of 3,000 years, but possibly as long as 10,000 years.
Wow.
There is a place, if you look on the map, called Jones Pond in East Providence, where there has been an archaeological dig, and they have found items that have been dated to over 3,000 years there. So if you're living in East Providence, you have picked the same place that people who've been living here for thousands of years said, hey, this is a great place. I want to live here. Okay. So this is great real estate. The one other thing I'd always like to point out is this whole area of East Providence used to be Seekonk. Remember, before we were East Providence, we were Seekonk. Well, this is what's called the Seekonk Plain. That is a large flat area, this whole section here. And if you drive through there and take a look, there aren't any hills here. It comes up from the river and it is flat, this whole area. That was a very well populated area because it was easy to grow crops there, easy to hunt, and a favored place. So until Watchemoket was sold to John Brown back in 1642, we know that this area was well occupied by members of the Pokanoket tribe. And let me just say very briefly that you've all heard the term Wampanoag. Well, that was a term that never was used until after the King Philip War. First time it appears in print is 1702. The Massasoit Osamequin, who lived in Somes and probably down here in the Warren, Barrington area, never heard that word, Wampanoag. This was the Pokanoket tribe, and if you look at early maps, there are numerous maps, they all say Pokanoket. There's no reference to Wampanoag. Wampanoag was the term assigned to the tribes who fought the English in the King Philip War. So it's kind of ironic that some of the tribe, particularly over in the Cape and Mashpee area, have reclaimed the name Wampanoag when they were really praying Indians who were on the side of the English. They took the name of the enemy. So there's a lot of nuance in history. So if you want to spend more time with that, I've got video and web pages on the Somes Heritage Area. So we have Pokanoket land, and let me just reference one other thing, and I could stop talking. I could talk for hours. You know that, Laura. But can you see this on your share screen? So does everybody see the Pokanoket Land Acknowledgement Statement?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want to read that, Dave, for anybody that's on their phone?
I'll read it. And I now start our meetings of the Conservation Commission and of the Study Committee with the statement. And I would love to see the city of East Providence to adopt this there are shorter versions, but basically it says, welcome to the lands of the Pokanoket people, their ancestral home for 10,000 years prior to settler colonization. We pay respect to the tribal elders and people of this community who served and continue to serve as stewards of the lands and waterways of Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We recognize the unique and enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. We acknowledge that we are on the historic homeland of the Pokanoket tribe within the original territory of the Pokanoket Nation. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Pokanoket people whose lands and water we benefit from today. And let me just very quickly introduce you. If I can get to another shared screen, I'll stop this one and share one more screen and I'm done.
He's there.
That is the Sagamore, the 10th descendant of the Massasoit. So if you think they've all disappeared, they haven't. There were colonization efforts over the last 200 years to drive the Pokanoket people out of this area. Some were enslaved, some were killed, and others were sent to Connecticut to a reservation. But there are over 300 of them back in this area now. They are reclaiming their land and telling people their history that they have kept submerged for most of 400 years here. This is Winds of Thunder. His English name is William Guy, and here he is addressing people at the the Watchemoket Square Day a year ago, and telling people who lived at Watchemoket Square what the history of that area was all about. So with that, I'll be happy to take questions. Are we doing questions?
We could. Let me open up the chat.
Okay. Let me stop the share here so we can see each other better. And I'm looking at chat. And
it says, I asked, Dave had mentioned the praying Indians, which is the first, I have a vague notion of what that is, but I thought it'd be nice if you explained who the praying Indians were.
Well, I think one thing that would help is to take a look at some of the work that the Roger Williams University has done recently on helping us understand colonization. There's a whole presentation that Dr. Jeremy Campbell has done. And students, not just at Roger Williams, but across the country, are learning about colonization. This is a very important subject because, as we've all seen, statues of Columbus coming down, and it really ties in very closely with Black Lives Matter. It's all about helping us to better understand our history. And though I and most people grew up with a kind of sanitized version, as in the case of most folks who colonize, they get to tell the story their way. But if you really dig into it, one of the reasons that the English came here was to convert the native people to Christianity. If you simply look at the early flags of Massachusetts, you will see an Indian figure right in the center of the flag, in the state seal, and with the words coming out of their mouth saying, "Come over and help us." That was meant to be an indication that the English were here to convert the native people, not just to religion. I mean, that's one thing to say, we want you to believe the way we believe. They also wanted you to dress that way, live that way, just totally wipe out your native heritage. Today, we call that genocide, okay? That's killing a culture, all right? And in fact, there was an active effort by a preacher named John Eliot, starting in 1650, to establish what were called praying towns. That was to take the native people who agreed to become Christian and then move them into a new English town where they would live in houses, not weetus. They would dress in English clothing, not native clothing, and they would attend church and do all the things that the English people would do. Well, if you go to China and say, what's going on there with the Rohingyas and the Uyghurs, what's that government doing to abolish a whole ethnic minority? And we don't agree with that. Well, that's what was going on here, and it's nothing specifically against Christianity. It's against the process of colonization, that you invade an area and you take it over by removing the people who are there. And that's exactly what happened. And there may have been some native people who, in fact, there are quite a few native people today who are Christian, but it was the process and the intent behind establishing praying towns that really has come under scrutiny today. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Indeed. In fact, I mean, I had a notion somewhat of that, but I know you gave it really an in-depth answer I did not really think of or did not know. I know they had Indians at Harvard rather early.
That was
like
Harvard.
Within like 5 years.
Harvard was established in order to teach Indians, okay? That was part of colonization. Teach them English, teach them how to read and write, the whole thing,
Thank you.
Didn't work well. There were only about 14 who ever attended there, and most of them either dropped out or died. So it then became a school just for colonial people. But yeah, no, that was the reason Harvard started.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Dave. Everyone, thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to having you back again, Dave, at some point. Maybe we'll have some more questions, and we'll be able to see everybody in person, and we wish everyone well, and we will see you again soon. Have a great night.
Thank you.